What's going on, ladies and gents? This is Relax OK Comics back to you guys with another video. I'm going to be reacting to Marvel just confirmed the MCU reboot, and sooner than we think, right? So, my personal opinion, they need to do something. They need to reboot. They need to do something because whatever jaunts that we just been getting just now, it ain't it. And the other two projects that we see coming forward, it ain't it. They need to do something, man, because dudes are losing it. Apparently, the Daredevil is not making the views that they thought it was supposed to make. Captain America didn't hit. I mean, it's doing, nobody, I don't know anybody excited for Thunderbolt, only to see Century and Fantastic Four. I mean, we had like two flops of those, and people are comparing that one to this one, and I don't know. I'm still going to see those two movies, Thunderbolt and Fantastic Four, but I honestly think that they need to get back in the lab and start cooking. Let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, dislike if you dislike it. Let's get right into the video.
Marvel has confirmed that we are getting a reboot in the MCU. In fact, it sounds like we're getting it sooner than we thought. And in a weird way, it kind of sounds like right now we can kind of ignore the title Phase 6 and kind of lean more into Phase 7 or Phase 1. Because according to the Russo brothers, a new beginning is starting, a fresh start. Now, other executives at Marvel Studios like Brad Winderbaum, head of Marvel Television, have addressed the reports that Marvel Studios is going to do a reboot of the MCU. And for those who were worried that they were going to do a complete and entire reboot, fear not. Brad Winderbaum confirmed they're not going to do that. They're not just going to wipe everything and start fresh. Now, there is an argument that completely starting over from scratch would be a good thing to do for Marvel Studios, but in a way you can do that with a soft reboot, while at the same time a soft reboot allows us to remember the past of the MCU and keep it all canon. Plus, Marvel has to keep certain characters that still have a lot of movies left in their contracts, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So I do believe that this is the way to go, and now the Russo brothers have revealed that they are basically charged with ending basically the multiverse story that we have right now and starting a new story, starting the new MCU, which is probably for the best because the multiverse saga has been kind of chaotic and all over the place. And it looks like the Russo brothers are going to not exactly ignore what's happened in Phase 4 and Phase 5 because it is the MCU. You can't just act like none of it happened, but they are essentially doing a fresh new story for Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. And in a recent interview, they explained that and confirmed they are going to reboot the MCU. And they even talked about their future moving forward. In a recent interview for their movie that just came out, The Electric State, like always, the Russo brothers were asked questions about the upcoming Avengers films, Doomsday and Secret Wars. But for this question, they were specifically asked about what brought him, Joe Russo, and his brother, Anthony Russo, back to the MCU. And it sounds like Marvel Studios basically said, hey, if you come back to the MCU, you can essentially restart it, do your own story for how you want to essentially end the MCU, and then handle how it picks up. Handle how the new universe comes to life. Joe Russo said this: what's compelling about these two new Avengers movies is they're a beginning. He continued and stated, it's a new beginning. We told an ending story, now we're going to tell a beginning story. Now, the ending story that Joe Russo is talking about here is, of course, Avengers Endgame, which people did know. It was the end of an era. It was the end of the Infinity Saga. And while the beginning of the next saga might not have gone how a lot of people expected it to go, it was indeed a new story. But now it looks like Marvel kind of wants to put that overall story that wasn't exactly that well connected to bed. Because as Joe Russo said, these new Avengers movies are a new beginning. Now, of course, you can't have a new beginning without an end to the stories that have come before Doomsday and Secret Wars. So this is it. These next two Avengers films are going to reboot the MCU, and when they're done, we're going to have a new beginning. In fact, the way Joe Russo described the next two Avengers films, we're going to have a new beginning somewhere in the middle. And this makes sense if you consider what Marvel Studios most likely wants for Avengers Secret Wars, and that is to have everybody in it. There are a lot of restrictions that Marvel Studios can place upon themselves if they want to wait till the next saga to introduce characters like the new X-Men team. And a lot of us thought that it was pretty weird that Marvel Studios decided to introduce our new Fantastic Four team, who was going to survive the reboot, but not any new X-Men characters. We knew that old Fox X-Men characters would return, and we'd get some variants of some X-Men and some cool cameos, and we got most of this.
Why? Why do we need the Fox? Just start a whole new one.
In Deadpool and Wolverine and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And it seemed like at the time, Marvel Studios
Makes no
didn't
sense
really
to
have
me.
any plans to bring in the new X-Men to the MCU until after the soft reboot. But that was before the Russo brothers came in, kind of with their own plan. And it seems like Kevin Feige agreed, and now the Russo brothers are responsible for ending the multiverse saga and starting the new one. And the Russo brothers even said in that same interview, who knows where it will go from there. Maybe it will be another 5 years. I think we just needed that time and perspective to figure out where it needed to go next, and the only thing that brought us back was the right story. Now, this falls in line with the report that we heard several months ago from industry insider Daniel RPK, where he stated that Marvel wants the Russo brothers to handle the beginning of the next era, what Kevin Feige deemed as the mutant era, and what is essentially the start of a new universe. So this all lines up now. The Russo brothers have revealed that in Avengers Doomsday and or Avengers Secret Wars, they are ending what came before, and this is a new beginning for a new chapter in the MCU. But again, do not worry about a full MCU reboot. Marvel executive Brad Winderbaum confirmed they will not do that. In an interview for Daredevil Born Again, he was asked what his thoughts were about a full MCU reboot and if Marvel Studios would consider doing that. And he stated, "Look, I've been a comic book fan since I was 12 years old, and I've seen what happens at comic companies when things get full reboots, right? And the truth is, every time there's been a full reboot in DC, or, DC in particular, but it always feels like you can't really fully reboot anything. The classics always come back around. It's a very difficult thing to do to a living, breathing, fictional universe to just start from scratch because of all the fan investment and love for the stories that have come so far." So right there, confirmation from an executive at Marvel Studios, they're not just gonna fully reboot the MCU. They're not gonna get rid of the characters and the stories that we've come to know and love and invest in, as he puts, over all of these years. So we don't have to fear about the stories of Iron Man and Captain America and the first Avengers and everything else essentially being erased from history. They're not going to do that. However, a soft reboot does give us a new universe to play in, a new universe where the Avengers exist alongside mutants and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and anybody else that Marvel Studios wants to throw in there that they can. And this also helps make sense of a lot of other things that Marvel Studios has done, whether that was intentionally a part of their plans or not. Like I mentioned before, the Fantastic Four showing up in the MCU, but not the new X-Men, was a little confusing because we knew there would be a soft reboot. So them showing up was the first sign that not everything was going to be completely rebooted and characters would survive this. But now it sounds like the Russo brothers have complete liberty to do anything that they want. Telling a beginning story gives you that freedom, and Avengers Doomsday is the perfect opportunity to do that, destroying not just the universe that we have come to know for over a decade, but the entire multiverse that surrounds it. Then building
I still don't think that was good casting for Dr. Doom.
From there.
I'm sorry.
But you keep some of the old characters from the old universe, and you keep some of the old locations. That way, you don't entirely forget, and you honor what happened in the past. And this is great because now we can have the new X-Men characters show up in Avengers Secret Wars and survive the reboot, because it sounds like at that point in time, the reboot will have already happened. And I gotta say, I actually do like this, and I've seen a lot of people say the same thing online. Because at the end of the day, whether you have enjoyed everything from Marvel since Phase 4 or not, the overall story of the MCU has suffered. The connectivity has suffered. And that's because, well, Marvel went through a lot of different changes which were very challenging. They had to introduce Disney Plus content, and they put out way too much. And Disney has acknowledged this now. The story of the overall MCU and individual stories as well got a little convoluted, and then of course you had the whole thing happen with Jonathan Majors, which made Marvel Studios decide to pivot away from Kang. Enter Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom as the one and only main villain of the multiverse saga. I actually think that he was probably still coming in when Kang was still here, which would have been cool, but now it's just Doom. Secret Wars has always been about Doom. Both versions from the comics. And Marvel is now essentially pruning everything that didn't work before in the multiverse saga and starting anew. And according to the Russo brothers, that is happening in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, our new beginning of the MCU. And then it sounds like they're going to stick around and kind of handle the beginning of that next new universe after Secret Wars, which I think is going to be really great for continuity purposes. And they'll have a great game plan moving forward with how one universe ends and the next begins, because the Russo brothers are responsible for both. So rather than just having the Russo brothers in the multiverse saga, then getting somebody else to come in and pick up from where they left off and start a new saga, the Russo brothers just handle it all. That way it's a smooth transition. And I think this is the best way to go. And the fact that Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be a new beginning for the MCU makes me even more excited to see what Marvel and the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely have in store for us. But go ahead, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below.
So let me know what you guys think about that. Are you guys excited for a reboot for the MCU? I personally think that they need to do this. So yeah, like, subscribe. Got more content coming for your way regarding Marvel. Peace.